Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Troy Clayton, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Class 1 Kim Owen. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Return and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Club Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Thank you. If you're able, you may be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to gunner Cyril Walter Hebbend. Cyril Hebbend was born on the 9th of October 1889 in the town of Petternay in New Zealand. He was the fourth of 10 children born to English chimney sweep Joseph Hebbend and his wife Eliza. Cyril attended Petternay District High School, then undertook training at a correspondence school before finding work as a draftsman. While in Petternay, Cyril was an active member of the region's Naval Artillery Volunteers for 3 years. At some stage between 1912 and 1914, Cyril crossed the Tasman on a recruiting trip to Australia and settled in Victoria, in the seaside town of Queenscliff. He joined the Royal Australian Garrison Artillery at Fort Queenscliff in late 1914 as a fireman. Cyril Hebbend joined many of the men from Fort Queenscliff in enlisting in the Australian Imperial Force on the 4th of June 1915 and was allotted to the newly formed Siege Artillery Brigade Heavy as a gunner. After a month of initial training, the Siege Artillery Brigade departed Melbourne in HMAT Orsova on the 17th of July 1915. After a brief stopover in Egypt, the brigade arrived in England in late 1915. Cyril was granted 5 weeks of sick leave, after which he returned to the brigade on the 19th of November and spent the winter of 1915 and 1916 in camp in Taunton. During its time in England, the Siege Artillery Brigade was renamed O Siege Brigade, with 2 batteries equipped with 8-inch and 9.2-inch howitzers. These were the heaviest guns that were operated on a continuous basis by Australian gunners in the First World War. Designed to pulverise enemy defensive positions, the heavy artillery guns were difficult to move quickly and offered a prime target for enemy artillery. Cyril was allotted to the 55th Battery of the brigade in January 1916, one of the gunners responsible for the battery's 9.2-inch howitzer guns. Writing home to his parents in Petternay, Cyril gave an account of some of the practice work the men were doing. We have been busy mounting and dismounting for practice. Every week we have spent 2 nights out, taking all gear and going into the country and mounting the guns in a field and bringing them home the next day. They are 9.2 inches and very heavy, in 3 parts, each part having a carriage of its own. The brigade left England on the 27th of February 1916 and arrived at the town of Boulogne-sur-Mer, situated on the English Channel. The brigade remained in northern France for the first half of 1916, based around the city of Arras. Although the heavy artillery were based well behind the front line, they were still at risk from enemy artillery, aircraft, and even from infantry if they managed to get close enough. The heavy guns were difficult to conceal, particularly when firing, and the defensive earthworks created to conceal and protect the gunners were still vulnerable to enemy artillery fire. On the 26th of March 1916, the 55th Battery were based near a village just north of the brigade headquarters. At some point during the day, gunner Cyril Hebbend was killed in action. He was 25 years old. Cyril's remains were buried at Ikawa Military Cemetery. After the war, an Imperial War Graves headstone was erected over his grave, bearing the inscription selected by his family in New Zealand. Someday, sometime, our eyes shall see the dear face we hold in memory. His name is also listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Gunner Cyril Walter Hebbend, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We'll remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub of Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.